James, we got a lot to talk about, including, close your ears, a sex scandal in North Carolina. But let me just first give the state of the presidential race right now, less than 50 days out.
Look, this thing is tight. And if any Democrat is feeling really bullish, let me knock it right out of you. All right, we have a lot to do. And don't ask me to explain, but you saw the poll today in the New York Times that comports with 3 different good private polls I got today. That's about where we are, 47-47. And remember, well, we can talk about it, but the Democrat has to win the popular vote by 2 or 3 points. So whenever you see a number, you can just deduct 2.5. So it's great. We had a great convention, we had a great debate, and we tied. And that's just the way it is. It doesn't do me any good to come here and bullshit you and tell you that I don't have any idea who's going to win. I think if we execute certain things and have more discipline, I think we can win, but this is a long way from an election that anybody is remotely ready to call in either direction.
James, I totally agree with you on the fact that this is a tight election. I slightly disagree on the fact that the Democrats have to win by, 2 or 3. I think that was the case before. But, we had on, what was his name, Michael Podhoretz on
right.
Who knows as much about this as anybody, and he kind of poo-poos that. I think there's a slight electoral college advantage for the Republicans, but a lot of the 2 or 3 is based on what happened in 2016. And, you'd like to win by enough of a margin you don't worry about it, but I don't really care what her margin is in California or New York, but I care a lot about what her margin is in Pennsylvania and North Carolina.
Well, maybe it's 1.5. Okay, but
he's moving in the right direction.
This
folks.
is not. I know this audience. It doesn't tend toward good news. They'd rather you be a little bit more on the bad news side, and we can adjust downward. All right, but whatever it is, I see too much giddiness, and that's just not where we are in this election at all. And there's only one way I've ever done my whole career in politics. There's only one way I've ever run, and that is scared. And I'm going to be 80 on election day, and I'm unlikely to change. I'll always run scared.
I would just remind everyone that he's the kid on this panel, so it kind of tells you where we are. I don't disagree with anything that James has said. Events sometimes can help you or they can hurt you. I think there's an event that occurred today in North Carolina that I think is going to help Democrats. I usually don't believe in reverse coattails or bottom up, if you will, but North Carolina Republicans have nominated such a crazy ticket. The woman running for the head of education, public instruction, has publicly advocating executing Barack Obama at Guantanamo and putting it on pay-per-view. Now, you can't make that up. But their gubernatorial candidate, everybody thought was really bad. He said that women only have abortions because they can't keep their skirt above, below their knees. I mean, he just really has said some dreadful things. But it got worse today, didn't it, James?
It got much worse, and you should look at it. CNN broke the story. I'm sure they had a little help from some people who are in North Carolina. And the important thing to remember, the story was held until it was too late to get him off the ballot. But it's literally that bad. But what bothers me is this. We've had the following events. We had an energetic convention that would be very difficult to find anything wrong with it. We had a debate where, frankly, you couldn't help but think that we didn't just win, we won by more than a lot. He's had the craziest cats, and they ran a cartoon in the New Orleans paper when a hurricane was coming. It said, Louisiana is raining cats and dogs, and Ohio they're eating cats and dogs. He's had the stupidest thing you can, and it's still tied. It's still tied. And, you know, today we got announcement of a half-cent point rate cut. We've had unemployment numbers that have been staggering. We've had growth numbers that have been staggering. Jamie Dimon, who reportedly knows something about this kind of stuff, says the best economy he's ever seen. But unfortunately, in spite of all of that, we're tied. And we have to understand that's where we are. I'm not saying we're not going to win or we're going to lose. I'm not saying anything like that. But what I am saying that I get a little frustrated like everybody else. I think we keep doing this, and I think it's going to change the structure of the race, and it comes back and the structure of the race does not change. Mm-hmm. I think if you squint hard enough, you can find some evidence that our position has improved, maybe since Labor Day, but you'd have to squint pretty hard and look pretty hard to find that evidence.
Well, I'm more bullish, but I'll give you another bit of bad news that you all may think is insignificant. But the Nebraska legislature, heavily Republican legislature, is, why am I saying, yeah, it is in Nebraska, Nebraska is one of two states that decides the electors by congressional district, and the other is Maine. And the Republican, Lindsey Graham has been flying out there. You know, Lindsey Graham, he used to be the John McCain-loving Republican who suddenly found a new daddy. And he's out there, and they are going to try to change that law, and they may succeed. And the thinking always beforehand, well, if they change it, Maine will change it. But Maine's up against a deadline which they may not be able to constitutionally able to change it. And you say, oh, come on, who cares about one district? It's not a crazy scenario. We don't know what will happen. I think James has made that point in the final 7 weeks. But if Harris wins the so-called blue wall, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and loses the South in Arizona and Nevada, and if she wins that one district, which Biden won last time, that's 270 electoral votes. She loses that one district because of change in the Nebraska law, that's 269 electoral votes. And guess what? That goes to the House. And who has a majority of delegations in the House? Probably the Republicans. So I think that really reinforces your point, James, that this is, nobody should be overconfident or engaged in hubris right now. What do you look for in the next month or so?
Well, we have a okay favorability ratio, which I'd look for. You know, there's been some improvement. The enthusiasm number is comparable. I've seen some. I don't like to. You got to look at an aggregate of polls, and you got to look at the better ones a little more than the other ones. But everything is uncomfortably close, and it's uncomfortably close in spite of there's some pretty good news from the Democratic vantage point. And you know, we think that his immigration argument is false and salacious and racist. Unfortunately, it's more popular than we like to believe. And I don't care what, this is the United States car 2024. Racism, nativism, and misogyny are still out there in the country. As much as we like to think that it's not, I'm here to tell you it exists. And it exists in more than little pockets here and there. I'm not saying we can't overcome it. I'm not saying we can't win, but we're a long way from being able to state that with any kind of certainty. I don't want to get anybody thinking the wrong thing. I'm just scared. I'm uncertain. I feel like I got a job to do between now and Election Day. Whatever it is, I'm going to try to do the best I can, and then I'll think about it election night, but I can't allow myself to get paralyzed by this.
James, the presidential election is obviously the big one, but there's also incredibly important elections for Congress. The conventional wisdom, which occasionally is right, is that the Democrats face an uphill, near impossible task of keeping the Senate. It's 51-49 now. West Virginia is going to go R, which makes it 50-50, which means they have to win all their close seats. That's a very tough challenge. And yet there's kind of a sense that probably the Democrats have the upper hand in taking back control of the House. What do you think of that conventional wisdom?
So I'll say this. There's 7 swing states. The most unlikely outcome is they break 4-3. Elections tend to break one way or the other. I'd say it's much more likely to end up 5-2 or 6-1 than they end up 4-3. The other thing I'd say is generally the House and the Senate run in tandem. Now, the Senate map is really challenging. I have no doubt about that. I also think, and not many people agree with me, I think Florida is going to be a lot closer than anybody thinks. I think I have pretty good reasons to.
On both the presidential and the Senate?
Yes, both the presidential and the Senate. Maybe the Senate might be maybe the Senate candidate will run slightly ahead of the presidential candidate. But you got the abortion on the ballot, you got weed on the ballot, and they're getting killed by insurance rates. Homeowners, car insurance, everything is just off the charts in Florida. A lot of it is climate-induced. But I do think that if there's 7 acknowledged swing states, I think Florida is probably, Florida, Texas, I can't tell you which one. We get our hearts broken there every 4 years. But I believe in keep trying. I'm more bullish on Florida than most people.
And you believe that abortion is still a big winning issue for Democrats?
We have not lost an election since Dobbs. That's one thing we got to get over.
We haven't lost a competitive election.
Right, yeah, I mean, the state Senate seat in Alabama, we were supposed to lose by 23. We lost by 7. I don't count that as a loss. Okay, there's some seat in Nebraska, but basically anywhere that we've teed it up in a congressional race, a mayor's race, or even state legislative races, since Dobbs, the Democrats have way outperformed. Now, what people legitimately would say is, well, Trump's on the ballot, he changes everything. That may be true. But what's also true, we haven't lost in 2 years. And we didn't lose. And believe me, 2022 was a big Democratic win. Don't kid yourself. That went against history. And I think you're not going to get much disagreement from people that follow this closely. That was Dobbs on display. This is one powerful issue the Democrats have.